I've made two easy to sew knit garments from a new indie pattern brand that I hadn't sewn before, and I'm very happy. A pair of pants and a knit top, super cute, they go together and I really enjoyed sewing them. Stay with me to find out what I've sewn. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today is about knit sewing. Today I have two patterns to share with you, which is not something I usually do because I usually just dedicate a video to one garment, but actually these are very easy to sew, and although I did film sewing content for them, it is pretty brief because the patterns are just very beginner friendly and very simple to put together. Very enjoyable of course, and great to alternate between makes that are a little bit more challenging, so these projects are always welcome. And these patterns are by Pattern Emporium. So I've been collecting patterns from this brand since December 2019 when I saw they had a big sale for New Year's. I bought so many patterns and then I just haven't sewn them, and then every time there's a new pattern release I have bought the patterns, so I think I have most of them, if not all. I think I'm missing a few, so it's always exciting to try a new pattern brand. I had been looking at these patterns, of course, I'd seen how the instructions were, all those things, and I was very happy with the quality, and that's why I kept buying them, but I just hadn't sewn them. But now I've sewn two. I'll show you a look at the website. When there's a new pattern release, Kate, the owner of Pattern Emporium, she also puts other patterns that could go with the pattern that's released, and they also have a discount. So release sales are very short in Pattern Emporium. They last 3 to 4 days, I believe. It's not a full week, so it's quite a short time frame. So the new pattern release that has just happened a few hours ago is a poncho for knit fabrics, and there's lots of neckline options there, length options, and it's sort of like a square type of poncho that you can wear in different ways. And along with the poncho being on sale for 15% off, there are a whole bunch of other patterns, and I had a lot of them. I already had some of them, and I really wanted to sew two of them there that I saw. So one of the patterns that is also 15% off for this release of the poncho is the Palazzo pants. And I always like a wide leg pant. I've sewn similar styles in woven fabrics before, but I hadn't made one like this in a knit fabric, and I like the options offered there in the pattern. Yours truly flounce tank. I thought it was super cute, easy to make, lots of options there too, so I decided to go for those and sew them up for you. I will leave you my affiliate link down below so you can have a look at all the patterns that are 15% off, along with the poncho, which is the new pattern release. Have a look. I'm sure you're gonna love browsing through the website, looking at all the patterns. There's always so many photos of the testers there for you to get inspiration, and women of all heights and sizes you can see there, and it's always very inspiring to see what other people sew, and it gives you some ideas as well. The Palazzo pants have two options in the width of the leg. One is super wide and the other one is wide but more subtle than the other, so you can choose which one you like. I decided to go with the subtle one. That's as wide as my knit fabrics usually are. When I printed the pattern, I just placed it there and I thought, yeah, it's going to fit perfect. The wider leg can fit on your fabric, but you have to fold it in a different way, and it's all instructed in the pattern instructions, but of course it could take up more fabric. And I'm always looking to use less fabric, and I'll tell you a bit later what happened with my fabric. I had a bit of a problem. So yeah, I decided to go for the saddle. And then for the length of these, you can sew them culotte length, so sort of below the knee. You can sew them calf length, 3/4, and then full length. So when you look at the pattern piece, you'll see lots of lines for you to cut the length that you want. And for the full length, there's 3 lengths for the full length, so a tall one, a regular, and a short full length. So I think that's really helpful because depending on your height, you can choose which length there is going to work for you. And in the finished garment measurements, you can see what that measurement is from the top of the waistband down to the hem. I needed the full length tall view, so the longest. I really wanted to sew the full length. I didn't want to sew any other length in between. I just wanted the full length. The waist and the hips are fitted, and you have a low rise and a high rise option there on your pattern piece. And then for the waistbands, you can choose whether you want to do a yoga waistband, which is a little wider, and it will depend on your fabric choice, because the yoga waistband needs a fabric that is a little more structured, that has a bit more spandex or lycra or elastane in there, so it has good stretch and recovery. that means that you don't need an elastic in there. If you're sewing your palazzo pants with really lightweight knits and you want to use the same fabric for your waistband because you want to tuck it in or highlight that waistband, there's another waistband option there that is a little narrower and that will have a 2-inch wide elastic in there, I believe. So, you know, if I'm going to choose between waistbands, I'm always going to love the yoga waistband because I just like them. I just find them super comfortable. And as someone that's never ever going to tuck in any pants, I prefer the yoga waistband. Although I think doing it with the same fabric could look super pretty. It's just that no one's ever going to see it because I'm not going to tuck in. And for pockets, this is my favorite part from the palazzo pants. So it is a knit pant, and usually with knit pants, or you won't find any pockets, or you might find inseam pockets, but none of that. You know, you can sew them without pockets, that is always an option. But I like that you have curved pockets or slanted pockets like the ones you would see for woven pants, which I think is great because I love those types of pockets. It's really rare to see these pockets on knit pants, and it's totally possible. So you can sew slanted pockets or curved pockets like the ones you would see in jeans. And the way that the pocket bag is done inside, well, it's really good because I've actually hacked other pants pocket pieces to be like this. But this one is like this, so I'm very happy about that. Another type of pocket you could put there is the one that you sew the pocket opening, whether it be a curve or a slant, with binding, so that finishes it all. And then on the back you place just one piece and you top stitch it down. I think that's a great option if you're working with a little heavier fabric like Liverpool or Ponte or something like that. I wouldn't want to sew that type of pocket on ITY or rayon spandex because I just don't like top stitching on those light knits like that. So it would be a little bit more difficult to get it to look neat. But it is an option there, and you can sew that type of pocket either with a curved or a slanted pocket opening, which I think is great. Of course, you know this is for knit fabric, and you can use fabric that stretches both horizontally and vertically. But if you have fabric that stretches mainly horizontally and very minimally vertically, you could still use it because the pattern says that you need either 4-way or 2-way knit. But the horizontal stretch has to be at least 30%. So if you want a super dramatic look with a heavier fabric, you could use swim fabric, Ponte, scuba, Liverpool, maybe some French terry, something that's heavier, and the wide leg is just going to look super dramatic, which is not really what I want. I want mine to be really light and airy and drapey. So in that case, you can always use the lighter weight knits like ITY, double brush poly, rayon spandex, bamboo spandex, modal. The only thing I would say about rayon and bamboo and modal is that they tend to stretch vertically a lot. So you might end up making pants that are a certain length, but then when you end up wearing them, they tend to drop even lower than that. So you might need to check your hem twice because yeah, that type of fabric does stretch vertically a lot. The fabric I've chosen for mine is an ITY, and it has some vertical stretch, but not that much. I would say it's about 10%. So I'm not worried that my pants are going to end up longer than what I want them to be. Because these are wide leg pants and one leg is going to take at least a whole length of fabric. You know, when I was looking in my stash and trying to figure out what fabric to use, I ended up noticing that all my cuts of fabric were about 2 meters, just a little over 2 yards. And I have one fabric here that I was so excited to use. I really wanted it to work. And I thought, you know, there must be a way I could make it work with 2 meters. And it's this ITY with red geometrical sort of print. So nice, so nice. It feels cold on the skin. And yeah, I just wanted these pants so bad. And I'll show you the stretch. Stretch is nice. It's not that much. And vertically also has some stretch, but it was the perfect fabric. And sadly, I was missing about 15 inches of length to get both of the front and the back legs on there. There was no way on earth I could have gotten them to fit for the full length pant that I wanted. I could have gotten culottes, so like a shorter type length, but I didn't want that. I wanted full length. So unfortunately, I couldn't use this fabric. So I ended up choosing the only fabric in my stash that had more than 2 meters. I think I had 2.5 meters of this fabric, the one that I chose, and I'm very happy with the result. I think they're awesome, but they weren't my first choice. And I've been asked before, what is my process? And the way that I go about sewing is not that I choose a pattern and then say, what sort of fabric do I need? How much do I need? And then buy it. I do it the other way around. I just shop for fabric, random amounts, usually 2 meters, and think anything's gonna work with that amount. That's what I have back here. And I just shop my stash. But there are exceptions. Some patterns just don't fit into 2 meters like this one. So at least for my size and the length that I needed, 2.5 meters would have been fine. So I know now if I want to sew another pair, I need to get prepared and actually shop specifically and not just the 2 meters that I usually buy for most fabrics, you know. The sizing is in Australian sizing, so that is from sizes 6 to 24. It's not the same as US sizing. I think Australian sizing is the same as UK sizing, so that would be an equivalent to sizes 2 to 20 US. A few of the newer patterns have been released up to size 30. So I think the size range is improving, but the older patterns have this size range. I looked at the size chart and my body measurements. Now when you see waist, hips, you know, there's a range of measurements there. It's not an exact number. So my range falls into size 18 Australian, which would be equivalent to a 14 US size. And that's the size I decided to make. Because I was limited in fabric choice and I only had one option, I didn't want to mess it up, so I got this horrible knit that I've been using for muslins, and I made a really short pair, just really short. I even put a yoga waistband that I'm going to remove and use for something else, but I really wanted to check the crotch. You can't really do flat pattern measurements on a knit, it's just not the same. So I decided to just make the size 18 here and see what was going on. I was happy with the ease, all of that, but I thought I needed to shorten the front rise by 1/2 inch. I've got a little diagram here of my adjustments. That's just cutting across the front and overlapping it, getting rid of 1/2 inch in the center front, but nothing here on the side. And on the back, I added 1/2 inch. And that's the opposite. You draw a line right there and you add 1/2 inch at the center back and then nothing at the side seam. That's how the side seam is unchanged, and you can sew your front and your back legs together and the side seams are the same. It's just that the rise has changed in the front and the back. Not huge adjustments, but I thought I needed them for sure. I have 2 pictures of my muslin. I'll pop them here so you can see. And yeah, I was happy with those adjustments, and then I went ahead and cut my main fabric, my ITY. What I filmed for you is about the pockets. I think they're great pockets. I wanted you to see how to sew them. Very easy to sew. Maybe if you haven't seen my other pattern videos, you haven't seen what I'm raving about, what these types of pockets are. It's basically one pattern piece for the pocket bags inside, so you don't have 2 pieces that are sewn separately and that have seams inside and create bulk. You know, there's just a little fold in there. It's so nice. So let's go and see.
Don't you think this is starting to wear on me? You've been rated down like hell. I'm weak.
I want to show you these awesome pockets. Now, this is the front leg right here. This is the crotch curve for the front, and there is the curved pocket opening. You can also choose to make it a slash pocket opening, and you can do that on the pattern piece. There's a different lines for you to cut that out. Or if you want to make it with no pocket, you can just cut the full hip piece like that. I cut my little curved piece out and then I'll stick it back together to my pattern. But I am making the curved pockets. It's not something common that you'll see on knit pants. These are the types that you'll see in jeans, mainly in woven style. So I'm really happy that there's this pocket here in this knit pant. And the way the pocket bag is made is awesome because I've actually hacked other patterns to have this. But this pattern is like this, so that is really nice. So for the pocket bag, you just have one pattern piece. You can see that curve will match that curve over there. And then this is a pocket facing that you can opt to do if you want to make your pocket bags with another fabric or something lighter weight. That is what I'm doing. I didn't want to use the same ITY. So I have this tricot lining fabric that is also a knit. It also stretches the same. Very light, so it will make less bulk there on the pocket area. And there is this facing piece that you can cut out and put over there and sew it on. So basically that's how it would look. And if you've been watching my pant videos, you know I have done hacks to do this to save on main fabric. And this is what this pattern has as option. If you want to make your pocket bag out of the main fabric, you don't need to use this facing piece. You can just cut this out from the same fabric you're making your pants with. But I like this because it saves main fabric, and it also gives you the option of using an even lighter weight knit inside for your pocket. So that's what I'm gonna do. You can see that I've cut 3/8 of an inch wide strips of interfacing, just the regular type that doesn't stretch, to stabilize this curved pocket opening. I would do the same with the slash pocket opening as well. This is really stretchy fabric and I don't want my pockets stretching out. You can see this is going to be nice and stable in the future, and I think it's a really nice thing to do. You won't find these instructions in the pattern, but it is good practice that I do with any pant anyway, whether it be knit or woven. I'm just going to prepare my pocket bags. Now this is going to be hidden. The pocket entrance will come up higher than this, so the edge that unites this pocket facing to the pocket bag won't be seen. But because you know I like to keep everything neat, I am going to serge this edge before sewing it on to this pocket bag. Align this and just top stitch there to hold this piece in place, same as on the hip and on the waist area, and then this pocket bag can become one piece. I've got both pocket bags mirrored. You need to find the smooth edge, and that's where the facing goes. Of course, your facing will have the fabric right sides up. I've just pinned it onto the side there, and now I'm going to sew it down, but I'm not going to use a straight stitch. I'm going to use a shallow zigzag stitch so that this can stretch like normal. You know, this has got fitted hips. You need the stretch horizontally and vertically as well along this hip area. So I don't want to do any straight stitching here that could pop later. As I'm sewing this top edge that will go on the waist, I'm using a very, very small seam allowance, smaller than 1/4 of an inch, because that's the seam allowance of the pattern. I don't want this stitch to show on the outside. Here we have one of the front legs. This is a front crotch curve, and the pocket opening is always a smaller curve. Don't get confused. There is the interface side that makes it really stable. So just put it like this. Now take one of these pocket pieces that has the facing, and if it doesn't, don't worry, then it's just easier. You'll just have one piece. But if you do have the pocket facing with the main fabric sewn on there, get the one that makes this go right sides together, so that the facing and the leg are right sides together, and then you have the pocket opening like this. That's how it's going to be sewn. So don't get confused and get the other one and put it like this so that you have this right sides up and that right sides up. That would be totally wrong, so don't do that. Make sure your facing main fabric is touching the main fabric of your leg, and that's how it's going to be correct afterwards. So just align that there. I'm not going to sew it from the knit pocket bag side. I'm going to sew it from this side up, because this is the stable side with the interfacing. So because this top edge is already stable and won't stretch, my presser foot is not going to stretch it out as I sew, which might happen if I sew with this side up. Now if you're doing the slanted pocket opening, it's exactly the same thing, exactly the same. The only difference is you're not sewing a curve here, you're sewing a slant. But the pocket piece would have exactly the same shape, everything, you'd have exactly the same facing. It's just that this is going to be a slant like this instead of a curve. Same technique for both. I will use a sewing machine for this. I think a serger would make it a bit bulky, and it is 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and I've got my 1/4 inch presser foot. I am sewing this with a straight stitch because this is not an area that needs to stretch. As always, do your little clips, no matter whether you're sewing woven or knit. I think it's always needed. And the fact that this is 1/4 of an inch seam allowance is awesome. It's my favorite seam allowance for pockets like this. You don't have to trim anything away. I'm going to put my regular presser foot there so I can understitch. And understitching, I'll never skip it for woven or knits. It doesn't make a difference. I don't want the black pocket bag to be seen. So I've just extended it like this. You can see how light my pocket bag is going to be. It's almost transparent. And I've got the seam allowance under it. That's how you understitch everything, facings, pockets. You always have the seam allowance under the layer that you don't want to be seen. So I've got it there towards the left, and I'm just going to sew on the edge right there, also with a straight stitch. I always make sure I'm touching with my fingers that the seam allowance stays where it's supposed to be on the left. Sometimes it wants to flip over to the other side. This understitching will make sure that the pocket bag that's black will stay in there, and what you see on the outside is going to be very neat. Now I do want to top stitch because I don't want this moving around. You know, ITY is pretty slippery. If you're going to top stitch, it doesn't mean you should skip the understitching. If you just top stitch, that lining fabric is still going to be seen on the edge of the seam. The seam is not going to roll to the inside properly. Also sewing this with a straight stitch. Okay, so there's a really neat pocket opening. On the inside you have 2 rows of stitching, the understitching right on the edge. And you can see that that makes the seam roll to the inside, and you have main fabric there for like a 1/16 of an inch, and that's what's so great about understitching. I've got my front leg wrong sides up. You can see the wrong side of the fabric here, and the pockets all towards the inside. That has just been done. It's all finished there. Now all you have to do is fold this like this. Meet the edge on the hip, meet the edge here on the waist. From the right side you are going to have this. The facing that will make it look like the whole pocket is made out of the main fabric, but it isn't. It's made out of the lightweight knit. But before sewing the hips down to the side seam, so it's just one piece on the waist, we need to align this at the bottom because we need to close this pocket bag at the bottom. And we can do this with the serger. Now on the pocket piece, you'll see 2 cut lines. One is for a regular pocket, which is slightly shorter, and then a longer pocket, which just makes it bigger. I've cut the longer pocket because if I'm doing them, they might as well be big enough to hold something like a phone or something. Now on this folded edge of the pocket, you don't want to just cut your overlocking because it might start to unravel and then you'll get a hole in your pocket. So that's not a good idea to just go ahead and cut it. I'm just going to stretch this out a little bit. Okay, and just pull this back in quite a long distance. You know, it doesn't really hurt to have a nice amount there, and it will just secure the end and it'll keep it from unraveling, and it'll also make it look super neat. So that's it. Just sew it there, and then your front legs will be done. You repeat this with the other side, and then you just put your pant together as normal. Okay, there's one pocket already done, the curved edge there. It's all very neat, it's all very stable. You put your hand inside and you see the main fabric there on the hip, but further in you have a lighter weight knit in there. I'm assembling each leg separately, so I have a front and a back aligned at the side seams and the inseams, and I'm sewing this on the serger. It's super fast, the seams are pretty straight, nothing complex, no curves. And having the 4-thread serger is gold because I can just sew this seam and be done with it. In the past with my 3-thread serger, I had to serge and then sew on the sewing machine, and it was just triple the time. This is just so fast and so easy. What you're seeing me serge now is the side seam. The side seams and the pockets are just sewn together there, and it's super neat. So these are my palazzo pants. Look, this print is a little out there. I've used it before to make a dress because when I got this fabric, I think I got a lot of yardage for some reason. I just liked it, and I don't mind having different garments in the same fabric. So it's got this type of print, has sort of rectangular shapes, and there's also some vertical lines. There's all sorts going on here in grey tones with beige, off-white. I chose to do my yoga waistband with this cotton lycra that is denim look. It's very nice, very structured, very stretchy, and recovers very well. It's perfect for these yoga waistbands, and it's not the first time I make a yoga waistband with this fabric. Also because I think it looks pretty. I mean, it looks like I've got a denim waistband, right? And this tone of black matches everything that's going on there. So I really like that. You saw how I sewed these pockets. I love them. They're so nice. They're so stable there. I've added that interfacing as an extra step, and I think it makes a huge difference. And there's a good amount of space in there for you to put things. This is how wide the bottom of the leg is. So this is the saddle. There's one that's even wider than this. And it just goes all the way down. Super easy to sew once you get past the pockets. Now I wish I could have made another one. I'm just really frustrated I couldn't make them with this. I might actually order more of these because I really want to make a pair. I love the way that they feel. They're so swishy. They're just so nice. I'm really happy with them. Really recommend the pattern. I love the fact that it can be fitted at the waist and hips and then flare out and have that amount of volume. I think it looks really nice. It's really comfortable to wear. And this is my type of maxi skirt. I would never wear a maxi skirt, but I would wear pants like this, and that would make me feel like I'm wearing a maxi skirt, but I've got pants. So I have a thing with maxi skirts. I just can't wear them, but I can wear this, and I really like that. I really like how they turned out. I'll show you the videos of me wearing these with the photos at the very end, because the other pattern I made, I styled them together. So if I show you the pants now, you're gonna see the top. The other pattern I made is a Yours Truly flounce tank. Got a pretty long name, and I thought it was so cute. You know, it's not just a basic tank top, it's got little details there that make it super fun. And you can make them in different lengths. You can make it cropped, one that hits the mid-hip, and one that's a little longer. Below that seam you have a flounce, super cute, I love that. Sleeveless, of course, it's a tank. You can make a regular sleeveless or one that's slightly narrower, like a halter top. And the neckline can be a little higher or a lower version. Halter style of sleeveless armhole has to have the higher neckline, so you have enough width here. I decided to make the regular sleeveless with the lower neckline because I always like a lower neckline. There's also the option of adding a hoodie, which I think would be super cute. The flounce that gets sewn onto the bottom of the main tank is actually a circle, so there's no side seams on the flounce. It's just one piece that you sew on, super easy to sew. And the neckline and the armholes are finished with bands, also very easy. You can sew this one with lots of types of knit fabric. As long as they have 25% stretch horizontally and 10% vertically, you're going to be okay. So you can use lightweight knits like ITY, double brush poly, rayon spandex, modal, all the same types of fabrics you would use with the palazzo pants. You can use them to make this tank top and they'll be fine. And you can use heavier fabrics as well if you want to. I would not make this out of ponte because it will not drape. You need that flounce to drape nicely. So as always, I would always prefer the lighter knit fabrics, and in this case I was obsessed with this fabric I've had for ages. It's an athletic knit, wicking, almost transparent, so nice to wear. Now I've actually had tank tops that I run in this same type of fabric. I hope you can see the texture. It's got like little dots for ventilation. It's almost sheer, but when you actually wear it, it doesn't look transparent, and it's so nice. It's buttery soft, it's amazing. And I wanted this tank to be like multi-purpose, that I could wear it with a nice skirt or whatever and wear it out, or I could get sweaty in it and work out in it. So that was my goal for mine, just a really nice black tank top that would go with a nice skirt or palazzo pants. And also I could like ride my spinning bike with my leggings and I'd be absolutely fine. The sizing is the same as for the palazzo pants, from 6 to 24 US, and I've chosen the same size in 18 Australian, equivalent to a 14 US. Now there are detailed measurements of the length of these tops. The cropped one I think is way too short. I'm never going to make the cropped length version, but I like the hip length one. On me it would hit about the mid hip, and just doing a little bit of measurements there on the pattern, I decided to use the shorten and lengthen line and add an inch there around this area here so that it could actually hit my mid hip. The patterns I believe are drafted for a woman that's 5'5", so it is quite a nice difference to my height, so I decided to do that adjustment, add it there. The other adjustment I made, and is that you've seen before, is that I add an inch to the armhole just to make it higher in the front and the back. You can see that on the graphic. I was very happy to do that, and I'm usually happy with the result there, and that I know I'm gonna get a really nice cover right there. I filmed some sewing for you. I have made a few changes that had to do with the amount of fabric I had available, and I've also decided to finish the sleeveless armhole and neckline in a different binding technique, and I made a little mistake, so let's go and see.
Time flashed by and I woke up on the other side of the moon. The sun don't rise, all the light is gone from me and you.
This is the flounce piece of the tank, And it's one piece that's a half circle that you can see there, and on this top edge, this is what is going to go sewn onto the tank itself, and then this wider part here would be the hem. On this inner curve, you'll see 3 lines, and depending on the length that you're doing, whether it's cropped, the hip length or the long length, you cut along. I know I'm never going to make the cropped length, so I just cut off that first little line there was there, and I'm cutting on the second line, which is the hip line. The long line is right there. What this does is, as the tank gets longer, the hem of the tank gets a little wider. So if you cut this lower, you get a bigger circumference slightly. That's why you don't put the same flounce onto whatever length you're cutting. There is a specific one right there. Now it's meant to be on the fold there and there, so that you get a full circle to sew around your tank. With the fabric I have here, it's impossible. I won't be able to fit it in, and it won't matter. What I'll do here is just add seam allowance here on the top there, seam allowance on the top there. That means that my flounce will actually have seam allowances on the side like the tank does, and it won't be a full circle around the bottom. Of course, it would look neater without seams on the side, but if you don't have enough fabric, this would also work. Just add a little bit of seam allowance there and there, the same that you're using for the tank, which is in this case a 1/4 inch seam allowance, because it'll be sewn on the serger. This is an athletic knit, and it's got a really nice drape. It's very lightweight. I know if I try to hem it, it's going to look horrible. It's going to lose the drape. This fabric does not fray. So I'm going to cut this bottom hem bit there with my rotary cutter, because I know it's going to give me a really sharp, clean cut. I've even put a nice fresh blade in there, so it's extra nice. I don't want to cut this with my scissors because I might get little jagged edges. So it's a very nice cut edge, and I won't need to worry about hemming it. It'll just drape beautifully and just be left like that. There is a higher neckline that you can cut out on the front. You'll find it on the pattern piece. There's also a halter top, so it's sort of narrower here. For the back, there's only one back neckline option as usual. I've raised my armhole by 1 inch, which is what I usually do for anything sleeveless. So mine is 1 inch higher from there, and then up to the middle of the armhole, I just blended the line in there, and I've done the same to the back. So my armhole is going to be a little bit higher. Here are my 2 flounce pieces. I'll have a flounce piece for the front and one for the back separately. Although in the pattern, you're meant to have this on the fold, and then it would just be one circle all the way around the hem. I wasn't able to do that with my fabric amount, but it's going to look exactly the same. This is the binding, and I have used the pattern pieces for the length of them. So this is going to be for the neckline, and this is for the sleeveless armholes. The only difference is that this is a wider band, slightly wider like this. I've decided to cut my binding pieces just 1 inch wide. Now, I've used this before. I treasure this fabric. It's a really stretchy, lightweight leather look jersey. So it's shiny on one side, it looks like leather. On the other side, it's just opaque. And what I'm going to do with this one, because it's a sporty tank, you know, and just to give it a different look, I'm just going to fold this lengthwise and press it like this, and just keep the edges raw like this. And then this is how I'm going to wrap around the raw edges of the armhole and the neckline, and just top stitch it down. And I think it's going to look cool. It's going to look different. I have my back piece right there, and I've got the bottom of that back up here, and I've just placed my flounce right sides together. I put a pin in the middle of the flounce and the middle of the bottom of the back piece, and just pin that there. And this is going to match exactly. If you match the side seam of the flounce with the side seam of the tank, it's going to match perfect. Now I'm doing it like this because I cut my flounce pieces separately, as you saw. But if you had cut them as a circle, you would have a fold there. So you would sew the tank side seams first, and then sew the flounce. That would just be one piece. But I'm doing it like this. The edge of this flounce is a half circle, and it's matching perfectly the straight edge of the bottom of the tank. I've got it all pinned. I'm going to serge that, and then do the same with the front piece, and then I'll have my front and back with the flounce already there, and then I'll sew the side seams, making sure to match this really, really well there. That's the only difference I'm doing. I'm working on my binding pieces now because my armhole is a little higher than the original. I had to cut my binding piece a little shorter. I just measured my new circumference and calculated 90% of that for this binding. If it was a different type of knit that stretched more and had less recovery, then I would do it maybe 85 or 80. But this one's pretty structured and pretty strong, so I think 90% is okay. I just folded that in half and pressed it, made sure that the edge there of my raw fabric is against that fold right there, and pinned it. And I was stretching the binding slightly while I was pinning, and I've hand basted already the neckline one and one armhole. And I'm just going to hand baste this other one, and then I'll be ready to sew. I definitely would not want to sew it just like this. I feel like the fabric inside might slip and come out of the binding in some areas if I just use pins, so I'd rather just baste that. And I want to sew it there with a twin needle. I think it'll look cool, and it'll also allow this to stretch. Of course, when I'd finished my tank and was so happy with it, I went to give it a nice press, and I didn't realize I hadn't changed my iron settings, and I just burnt the hole right there. So I just cut the little piece out. Thankfully, it was on the side of the flounce, near the side seam, so I'm just going to trim that away. It's not going to be noticeable, I hope. I've drawn a little curve with a chalk, and I'm just going to trim it off with the rotary cutter. Then take that piece over to the other side and replicate the same curve. I'm going to reinforce those side seams again with the serger, and that'll be my quick fix to the burn. Thankfully, it was on that area and not in the middle of the tank. This is my Yours Truly. I decided to make the hip length. The neckline is unchanged. This is the lower neckline here, and it's very cleanly finished. So easy to sew. The flounce is so cute. And because I made a hole in my flounce when I was ironing it, like I'd already finished the garment, I just have it a little shorter here on the sides, curving out to the same shape there. And you can't tell. I mean, when I wear it, no one's gonna know that I made a boo-boo and I had to cut that off. I love the way this looks unhemmed. I think it's perfect, super breezy, flowy. I know if I'd hemmed it, it would have looked horrible. So there is a time and a place for raw hems for sure. I probably would hem about 95% of my knit garments, but this year I think I've not hemmed 2 of them, and this is the second one. So very easy, so easy to sew with the serger, so fast. And my binding, I'm in love with how this binding turned out with this leather look jersey. It's light on the inside, it feels really flat against my skin. And I've just left it raw like that because this is a special type of knit, you know, it looks like leather, and I just really wanted it raw this time. And I've used a twin needle, and it was so easy to do, and I think it looks really cool. I think it dresses up the tank a little bit also, having this type of knit there on the neckline. If you ever see a leather look jersey that's nice and lightweight, snatch it up, because I bought like 1.5 meters 3 years ago, and I've still got some left for more binding because I'm always using it for binding and details, you know. Wouldn't make a whole garment out of it. So nice. Here you can see me wearing both my garments, my Yours Truly tank and my Palazzo pants, but let's focus on the pants for this one. You can see they are full length. I am wearing heels because that is how I would wear these. I would always dress up to wear these pants. And they are nicely semi-fitted at the back, but you still have room, and the leg is just so nice and wide and flowy. I'm just moving my leg in a silly way so you can see that they are pants and not a skirt. The pockets are awesome. I can fit lots of things in there if I were going to use them. And you know, you can always do a half tuck there. I'm just doing that to show you the waistband. Not because I would wear them like that, but there you go. There is my comfy yoga waistband with the denim look jersey. So comfortable, and you can see my curved pocket opening. You can do the slant pocket opening, you know, you have so many options here, but I like the curved one, and it turned out really well. I made that adjustment on the back, and I'm very happy with the rise and where the waistband hits on the back. So nice. I'm very happy, and I would make more of these. I just need to plan to have enough fabric, and I'm just doing silly movements here so you can see how swishy they are. Closer look at my tank. I've already shown you the palazzo pants. There is that cropped length that would be way too short. This is a hip length. It hits my high mid hip and I really like it. The armhole is nice and covered after raising it, as you saw, and I love how that looks. The neckline is so nice as well. It's a top that's got a nice amount of ease, very flowy, very comfortable to wear. And even though this is a wider flowy top, I'm still wearing it with palazzo pants. And that's because this top isn't that long. If I'd made a longer version of this top, I wouldn't wear it with wide pants like that. I'd probably wear it with something fitted on the bottoms. But because this top is at the high hip, I think it's okay to wear with wide pants like that. And I could just be comfortable all day and feel amazing. I love that flounce. I think it's so cute. Fun making these patterns. They weren't hard to make at all, and I'm very excited to try more patterns from this brand and start printing out the patterns I've already purchased, because when you purchase patterns you want to sew them, right? Well, I'm very excited to actually sew them now. I've had such great experiences with both. I recommend, if you like them, you can use my affiliate link in the description box to get your patterns. They are 15% off, and I'll leave a link below so you can see all the other patterns that are also 15% off, along with the poncho, which is the new pattern release. If you haven't seen Pattern Emporium, go have a look. All the styles are very wearable, very cute, mainly for knit fabrics, but just cute stuff that you are going to wear, and I always enjoy that. I will have another video for you very soon, like in a few hours, because I just want to get these up before the weekend starts, so then I can have a little bit of a breather. So expect another video from me very soon, and it's a really nice knit dress from another brand, slightly more complex but not too much, and I have filmed it for you. So I will see you again very soon. Happy sewing.